There's a part of you that makes decisions before you even notice. It picks your fears, your loves, your limits. Sigmund Freud spent his whole life looking into this quiet force, and he found something most people never hear about. There's a method, almost a secret one, for having a conversation with it. A path that can change old patterns and open new doors inside your mind. If you feel that something in there is asking for a turn, take a deep breath and stay with me until the end. What's coming next might be the starting point you've been missing to start rewriting your own story. Sigmund Freud was a curious doctor, tired of seeing patients suffering from pains that had no explanation in the body. He treated women with sudden paralysis, men with strange phobias, people who kept making the same mistakes and didn't know why. The tests came back fine, the medicine didn't help, and yet the suffering stayed right there, real and present. And it was while he was sitting with that mystery that he had the first big insight of his life. Most of our mind isn't on the surface. There's a hidden, quiet layer underneath that decides almost everything before we even notice. Freud called it the unconscious. He used to say the human mind is like an iceberg. The little tip you can see above the water is what you know about yourself, what you can put into words, what you call reason. The rest, that huge part under the water, is where the old memories live, the hidden fears, the beliefs you don't even remember picking up. Everything you went through as a child, every harsh word you heard, every bit of affection you got, every scare, every compliment, every painful silence was recorded down there. And that invisible part keeps acting on you every single day, in every choice. From breakfast to the decisions that change the course of your life. When you sabotage yourself at an important moment, when you walk away from a good opportunity, when you react in a way that doesn't match who you want to be, that's the unconscious speaking louder than your will. It holds an old script and tries to play that script again, even when life has already changed, even when you've grown, even when the world around you is different. That's why willpower often isn't enough. You decide to change, and 3 days later, you're doing the same thing as always. It's not a lack of character, it's old programming. But there's good news, maybe the best news of all. If it was recorded, it can be recorded again. And that's where Freud's method starts to show its real strength. The first key to the method is a practice that looks simple and runs deep. Freud noticed something that changed the history of psychology. When he let his patients speak freely, without pushing for the right answer, without judging anything, things would start to come up on their own. He created a technique called free association. The patient would lie on the couch, close their eyes, and say everything that popped into their head. No filter, no order, no worrying about whether it made any sense. And there, in the middle of those scattered sentences, a strange word would surface, a memory forgotten for decades, a strong emotion that caught everyone off guard. That was the unconscious rising up, looking for air, looking to be heard. You can use this in your own life, with no couch, no office, and no one watching you. Grab a simple notebook, sit in a quiet corner of your home, pick a time when nobody will interrupt you, and write for 10 minutes without stopping. No editing, no worrying about whether the sentence sounds nice, no thinking about grammar, no going back to read what you wrote. Just let whatever comes, come. If a curse word comes up, write it. If tears come, write. If silence comes, write about the silence. At first it'll feel silly, a grocery list, complaints about the day, things you forgot to do. After a few minutes, something different will show up. A sentence that bothers you. A name you haven't thought about in years. A feeling you swore you had moved past, only to find it still there, alive, waiting. That's the moment when the unconscious opens a small crack. And inside that crack lives the turn you've been looking for. You start to see clearly the things that had been holding you back without you knowing, choices you made on autopilot, fears you picked up from someone else and never noticed. And once you can see them, you get the power to choose again. Do this for 7 days in a row and watch what shifts inside you. Most people are surprised by how little they really know themselves until they start. And they're also surprised, in a good way, by how many answers were already stored in there, waiting for someone to ask the question. Freud said that dreams are the main road into the unconscious. When we sleep, the rational part rests, lowers its guard, and what lives hidden takes the chance to speak. That's why strange scenes show up in dreams, people you haven't seen in a long time, places that mix childhood with the present, situations that make no logical sense. It's not madness. It's a language. The unconscious talks through images, symbols, and repetitions. It doesn't speak English. It doesn't speak Portuguese. It speaks in metaphors, the same way an old poem does. If you dream that you lose something important, maybe there's a fear of loss working quietly in your life. If you dream that you're falling, maybe there's an area where you feel the ground has slipped out from under you. If you dream about someone from your past, maybe that person stands for a part of you that needs to be heard right now. If you dream you're naked in public, it might be a feeling of exposure you're carrying without realizing. If you dream of a test you didn't study for, you may be putting too much pressure on yourself somewhere. Freud's method was simple and powerful. Write your dreams down as soon as you wake up, before the memory slips away, before the noise of the day wipes everything out. A small notebook by the bed, 3 sentences about what you dreamed. No deep analysis, just a quick note, the way it comes. Over time, patterns start to show up. You find out you dream of being chased when you're afraid to make an important decision. That you dream of water when emotions are piling up inside you. That you dream of an old house when you need to go back to something that was left half done. Each dream becomes a letter you sent to yourself, from yourself. And reading those letters, slowly and without pressure, is one of the most beautiful ways to get to know yourself from the inside. You don't have to understand everything at once. The understanding comes with practice, the same way you learn a new language, slowly and with patience. After a few weeks, you start to look at your own dreams like old friends who came by to drop off a message. There's a clue the unconscious leaves all the time, and almost no one notices it. Freud called it the compulsion to repeat. It's when we live the same scene over and over, with different names, different settings, but always the same painful ending, the same fight in different relationships, the same difficult boss in different jobs, the same feeling of not being enough, even after reaching big things, the same retreat right when everything could finally work out, the same money that slips through your fingers every time it grows, the same love that starts beautiful and ends just like the last one. This isn't bad luck or a coincidence. It's not the universe working against you. It's the unconscious trying to solve something old, using your adult life as a stage. It repeats because it wasn't understood the first time. And it'll keep repeating until someone stops and asks, calmly, what is this scene trying to teach me? When you recognize the pattern, something changes. You stop being a character in the story and become the author of the story. You see from a distance what used to swallow you from the inside, and that's where the method gets its full strength. Grab paper and a pen. Write down the patterns that keep showing up in your life, the kinds of people who appear for you, the kinds of problems that come back even when you change cities, jobs, or friend groups. Write down the feeling that always shows up at the end. Look for the common thread between them. That thread is the key. Behind it, there's an old pain asking for care, not punishment. There's a child inside you asking for a hug, not a lecture. There's a simple request that was never answered. And when you answer with care instead of anger, the cycle starts to come undone. The repetition loses its grip because it has already done its job of catching your attention. What looked like a curse turns into wisdom. What looked like a flaw turns into a map. And you start living new things because you finally stopped writing the same chapter again. The last part of the method is the most life-changing of all. Freud found that the unconscious doesn't change just because we want it to. It doesn't take orders from reason. It doesn't respond to motivational quotes. It doesn't respond to year-end goals. It doesn't respond to promises made in front of the mirror. It changes when an old story takes on a new meaning. This is called Reprogram. It's about taking a hard scene from your past and looking at it with different eyes. Not to pretend it didn't hurt, not to erase what happened, not to give a free pass to whoever hurt you, but to understand what it taught you, what it stirred in you, what it shaped you into over time. Think of a memory that still gets to you. Maybe a rejection that felt like the end of the world, a loss that changed everything, a moment when you felt too small, a word that kept echoing for years. Now ask yourself, with no rush, what did that child or that young person who lived through it need to hear that day? What words would have changed everything? What hug would have made a difference? And then say those words now, in silence, inside yourself, offering them to the part of you that stayed back there waiting. It might sound too simple. It might feel like nothing is happening, but this is exactly what reorganizes the unconscious. It doesn't understand logic. It understands feeling. And when the feeling of a scene changes, the whole memory rearranges itself along with it. The story stays the same, but the weight of it feels different. People who do this describe a new sense of lightness, as if a weight that had been sitting on their shoulders for years finally let go, as if an old door closed gently and a new door opened at the same moment. It's not magic, it's a method. It's the path Freud left as a gift to anyone with the courage to look inside with kindness. You don't have to become a perfect version of yourself. You don't need expensive therapy. You don't need a spiritual retreat. You don't need to wait until you have time. You just need to stop carrying stories that no longer match who you're becoming. The unconscious that seemed like an enemy becomes a partner. The mind that felt like chaos starts to make sense. And a life that felt like a rerun starts, finally, to have direction. All of this begins today with the first question you ask yourself in silence. Sit down, breathe, listen. Your best version is already in there, waiting for someone to open the door with care. And that someone now is you. The unconscious that Freud showed the world is not a monster to be tamed. It's an old ally who has been waiting a long time to work side by side with you. And when the two of you finally understand each other, your whole life takes on a different color.